Everything started on a peaceful afternoon when I left home to go shopping, completely unaware that upon my return I would be facing a disaster. My swimming pool had been turned into a wild party, led by none other than Karen, the most troublesome neighbor ever. Overcome with fury, I decided not to confront her directly, but to plan the most silent yet bitter revenge of her life. Welcome to Karen Karma. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. I am someone who values privacy. Owning a luxurious house with a swimming pool, I enjoy a quiet space, staying far away from the troubles of the outside world. But that peace did not last forever. She was a Karen, the president of the whole, the most annoying neighbor I had ever encountered. A large woman, self-centered, invading people's spaces without the slightest remorse. Karen considered herself the soul of the neighborhood, and it seemed that no one could stop her from doing whatever she wanted. One fine day, I decided to go out shopping, leaving my beloved house behind. Little did I know, a nightmare was waiting for me upon my return. As soon as I stepped through the gate, I froze. Trash was scattered across the yard, beer cans rolling around, open pizza boxes, crumpled napkins being blown by the wind. The grass was trampled, some spots stained with thick red sauce. But the most shocking sight was the swimming pool. The water was no longer crystal clear, but murky with floating debris. Plastic cocktail cups drifted aimlessly. A few deflated balloons bobbed on the surface. A plastic chair had been tossed to the bottom of the pool. Wet handprints smeared the pool's edge. I rushed into the house, my heart pounding. Turning on the security camera monitor, I immediately played back the most recent footage. And then my fury exploded as the clip appeared before my eyes. Loud music thumped, the DJ's voice hyping up the crowd. Laughter and shouting mixed with the clinking of glasses. Strangers swarmed my pool, sipping cocktails, dancing, and laughing like they were at some extravagant party. Some of them were even recording videos, posing for the camera as if they were at a luxury resort. In the corner of the yard, another group gathered around the barbecue grill, smoke rising into the air. A large man flipped meat, grinning as someone poured more beer onto the grill, causing flames to flare up. And the mastermind behind all of this, Kara. She stood in the middle of the crowd, her blonde curls perfectly styled, wearing a damn two-piece swimsuit, swirling a glass of wine in her hand. Her face beamed with delight, looking every bit like the hostess of the event. I clenched my fists, my teeth grinding together. My blood boiled. What the hell is she doing? I roared. Unacceptable. I grabbed my phone and immediately dialed Karen's number. Ring, ring. No answer. I called again. Ring, ring. Then the call was suddenly disconnected. Karen just declined my call. The anger inside me felt like a bomb about to explode. I yanked open the door and stormed outside. If she thought she could turn my house into her personal nightclub, she was about to realize just how wrong she was. I marched straight to Karen's house, pounding on her door so hard that the birds perched on the fence scattered in a frenzy. What the hell did you do in my house? I nearly roared. The door swung open. Karen stood there, arms crossed over her chest, leaning against the doorframe as if I were some nuisance not worth her time. Her light blue silk dress had a few wet spots, evidence that she had just come up from her own pool. What did I do? I did nothing at all, my friend. She raised an eyebrow, her tone casual, as if I were accusing an innocent bystander. I clenched my jaw, pulled out my phone, opened the security camera footage, and shoved it in her face. The screen clearly displayed a group of strangers invading my backyard, blasting loud music, and splashing around in my pool as if they were at an all-inclusive resort. For a split second, she looked surprised, probably foolish enough to think my house didn't have security cameras. But then, Karen blinked, and a smirk curled her lips, a smug, defiant grin. Relax. It was just a little party. We were just having some fun. What's the big deal? My fist tightened. My heart pounded with rage. I had put up with enough nonsense from this woman, but this time she had crossed the line. It's just a pool, no harm done, right? She snapped her fingers and shrugged, as if I were overreacting. I don't allow trespassers on my property without my permission, I ground out. Do you realize that what you did is illegal? Karen's face faltered for a brief moment, but she quickly recovered, tilting her chin up in defiance. I'm the president of the whole. She enunciated each word, her eyes gleaming with authority. And I have the right to inspect all properties in this neighborhood to ensure compliance with community regulations. I let out a dry laugh. By throwing parties in someone else's yard, you think I'm stupid. Karen folded her arms, her smirk unwavering. If you just followed the rules, I wouldn't have to step in. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. But I knew that if I stayed here any longer, I might end up doing something reckless. Karen tapped her fingernail against the door, her voice cold as she declared, Well then, my friend, I will never set foot in your house again. Happy now. I stared at her, then exhaled sharply, suppressing a bitter chuckle. Thank God, I muttered, turning on my heel and walking away. But I knew this wasn't over. Karen wasn't the type to back down easily, and I had to be ready for whatever trouble came next. I went back inside. I wasn't about to let this slide. I sat down, my fingers laced together, my eyes fixed on the old wooden table in the room. My thoughts spun like a fast-forwarded movie. Karen wasn't stupid. She knew where the security cameras were, which meant next time she'd be more careful. If I wanted payback, I couldn't act recklessly. I needed a smarter plan, a strike that would leave her no way to recover. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. And then an idea flashed in my mind, a perfect idea. No noise, no confrontation, but bitter enough for Karen to remember for a lifetime. Using her own bad habits against her. Silently, I stood up and walked into the storage room. The small room smelled of chemicals and old plastic. I opened the chemical cabinet, scanning through the various bottles until I found exactly what I needed. A special bottle of neon blue food dye. I picked it up and gave it a gentle shake, watching the liquid swirl inside like a shimmering emerald. This dye was harmless, but had one interesting characteristic. If someone soaked in water long enough, their skin would be stained blue for days. I smiled. Slowly, I walked to the edge of my pool, choosing a hidden spot behind some bushes. Carefully, I unscrewed the cap of the dye and poured just the right amount into the water. The liquid spread, blending seamlessly into the clear blue pool, but it didn't change the water's color immediately. Perfect. When someone submerged themselves, the dye would cling to their skin without them realizing it. I stood up, dusted off my hands, and walked away as if nothing had happened. Now, I just had to wait. Just as I predicted, Karen fell right into her old habits. Today, I made sure to stand right in front of my house, holding my phone, speaking loudly and clearly. Yeah, that's right. I'm flying out early tomorrow. I won't be home for the next few days. Ah, no worries. I locked everything up. No one's getting in. I glanced across the street. Karen was standing there, holding her grocery bag, but her eyes were glued to me. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly, a clear sign of excitement. I knew she had heard every word. I went inside, drew all the curtains shut, and pretended to pack my bags. Less than an hour after I had left, my security camera screen lit up with Karen sneaking up to my front door. She looked around cautiously before pulling a basketball from her tote bag, a classic trick to nudge the camera's angle. I just sat back and smirked. 15 minutes later, the sound of thumping music echoed from my backyard. Karen's party had officially begun. A group of strangers, shirtless men holding beer bottles, scantily clad women, flooded into my yard, dancing and shouting like it was their own house. A burly guy with a tattoo on his arm yelled, "Kaylee, you're amazing. This pool is incredible." Karen raised her wine glass, grinning smugly. Of course, I always know how to bring the fun. I watched my phone screen, waiting for the best part. And then, the pool water changed color. Someone screamed, "What the hell? Why is the water turning bright blue?" Panic spread through the crowd. At first, they thought it was a prank. But then, someone looked down at their hands and screamed in horror. A man's eyes widened as he saw his skin turning into a striking neon blue. "Oh my God, my skin!" he shrieked in pure panic. The others around also started screaming. A young girl stared at her arm, trembling. "I look like an alien," she screamed, her eyes filled with terror. Under the yard lights, the blue hue on their skin became even more vivid and bizarre. Some people in the pool tried to swim to the shore, but the water seemed to burn their skin. They screamed, thrashed, as if they were being dissolved by acid. A few men panicked, rushing to climb onto the shore, but slipped and fell, their entire bodies soaked, their glowing skin making them look like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. One by one, they became so frightened that they no longer cared about dignity, desperately scrambling over the fence and vanishing into the night. Karen still stood there, frozen. She stared at the pool, then looked down at her hands. She started trembling. Slowly, she raised both hands under the light. Her fingers had turned a brilliant blue. She screamed in horror. "No, I can't be like this." She ran to a nearby faucet, turned it on full blast, and shoved her hands under the strong stream of water. But the blue hue did not fade. The others rushed over too, desperately trying to wash away the strange color on their skin. But it was useless. A man shouted, "What the hell is happening? What kind of sick joke is this?" Karen turned, her eyes wild, desperately searching for answers. But no one knew what was going on. They only knew that this nightmare was far too real. I, still watching from a distance, smiled. They had dared to trespass into my home, and now they had to pay the price. It was time for me to make my entrance. As I stepped forward, I clapped my hands, cheering mockingly. "Welcome, everyone, to my house." I dropped my smile and glanced at Karen, who now looked like a bloated zombie. "I'm wondering what you're doing in my house when I'm not home." Karen glared at me, growling under her breath. "So it was you. You did this to us." I crossed my arms, smirking. "Relax, Karen. It's just a little party, isn't it?" Karen's eyes widened, her face twisting in fury. She couldn't even speak, only standing there, shaking as she took in the chaotic scene before her. My front yard was filled with blaring music, flashing lights, and loud, boisterous laughter. I waved my hand dismissively. "Get lost." Karen opened her mouth, as if about to argue, but then swallowed her words. She spun around and stormed off toward her house, her face still frozen in utter shock. Just then, the sound of police sirens echoed in the night. A neighbor, someone, had called them. I squinted as two police officers stepped out of their car, their faces bewildered at the sight of the crowd dancing with their glowing blue skin. "What the hell is going on here?" one of the officers asked, clearly confused. I shrugged, feigning innocence. "I'm not sure. These people just..." Before I could finish my sentence, Karen jumped in. She pointed a shaking finger at me, her voice full of rage. "He did this to me. He's the one who made me like this." But I wouldn't let her have the last word. I slowly turned to the officers, calmly stating, "She and these people trespassed into my house, caused a disturbance, and disrupted the peace. I think she deserves a warning. As I spoke, I held up my phone, showing the officers the footage of them destroying my security cameras. The two police officers looked at each other and then nodded. One of them stepped forward in front of Karen, his voice firm. You have violated public order regulations. This is an official warning. If you repeat this offense, we will not be lenient. Karen's face turned pale. She stammered a few words in defense, but no one listened. In the end, she lowered her head, fearfully taking a step back, mumbling, I am sorry. I won't do it again. I watched the scene unfold, feeling truly satisfied. After that, Karen went home and slammed the door shut. Immediately, she rushed into the bathroom, turned the water on full blast, and used every soap and brush she could find to scrub her skin. But the dye I had used was not ordinary. It clung tightly to the skin and would only fade after a few days. The next morning, as Karen stepped out of her house, she immediately realized the problem. Curious glances, hushed whispers arose from the surrounding neighbors. No one said it out loud, but everyone could see. Her skin was still bright green. She tried to hide it under thick layers of makeup, but nothing could conceal the truth. The neighborhood kids pointed at her and giggled. The other housewives pretended not to see, but it was clear they were holding back laughter. She had become the hottest topic in the entire neighborhood. The climax of it all came when Karen received a message from her close friend group. I swear this is the last time I'm coming to your house. Her entire circle of best friends, the ones she had once been so proud of, the elite ladies of the neighborhood, had now turned their backs on her. They wanted nothing to do with someone whose skin looked like an alien's. Isolated and humiliated, Karen never dared to set foot near my house again. I sat inside, looking out the window, sipping a hot cup of coffee. I knew Karen was going through the worst days of her life, but I felt no regret. She had spent years making my life miserable, from snide remarks and petty harassment to constant complaints about me to the neighborhood management. Now, at last, I had won. I smiled. She had brought this upon herself, and one thing was certain. Karen would never dare to mess with me again. What do you think of this story? Leave a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay tuned for more stories.